You're learning SQL, you're building projects, you're applying to healthcare analyst jobs and wondering why no one's calling you back. But something happened this week that should change how you approach all of it. Microsoft dropped a study, 2,000 workers, 10 countries, and they found a gap forming between two types of professionals. Which side of the gap that you land is going to determine if you get callbacks or if you get ignored. I read this report on Tuesday. They had a name for what I do every day at a Fortune 500 healthcare company. So I'm going to break down what they found, tell you exactly what it means, especially if you're trying to break into this field. First, I'll show you the specific number that tells you how big of a gap this is and why you should rethink your entire job search strategy. Then I'll break down the four things that top performers actually do different. And one of them is going to surprise you because it's the opposite of what most AI advice teaches you. And at the end, I'll give you one interview question that nobody's asking yet that could tell you more about a company than the entire job posting. I'm Jeff. I've been in healthcare analytics for over 13 years. At a top Fortune 500 healthcare company, I use Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT, and AI agents in my daily work. And I'm on a mission to help 10,000 people break into data analytics. So if that sounds like you, hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the content. And here's what Microsoft found. They surveyed 20,000 people who already use AI at work, not the general population, people who are actively using AI in their jobs right now. They asked people a simple question. Are you doing work today that you couldn't have done a year ago? 58% said yes. That's more than a half of people who are already using AI that are producing work that was impossible for them 12 months ago. That's significant. But that's not the number that I want you to focus on. The next number I want you to focus on is this, 80%. And for the top 16%, that number jumps up to 80%. Microsoft gave this top group name, Frontier Professionals. And that gap between the 58 to the 80 is not just a stat, it's a signal that not many people are paying attention to because people in the 80% aren't just using different tools. They're not working at fancier companies. They're just thinking differently about how the work gets done. And here's the kicker. This isn't about who uses AI the most because the left is already using it to speed up all work. But the 80% redesigns the work itself. This is what Microsoft is considering frontier professionals. It's about who uses AI to redesign the work itself versus who just uses it to do the work faster. That's the gap. And then you have people who aren't even learning AI and they're getting left behind. So the people that you're about to compete with for healthcare analyst jobs are splitting into these two groups right now. And let me tell you how I ended up on the right side of that gap because I almost didn't. More than 2 years ago, I was at a friend's party and her new boyfriend started talking about ChatGPT and said it was crazy with all of the different things that it could do, like coding. So we pulled it up on our phones and we downloaded it right there. But ChatGPT back then used to go down a lot and it was down. I tried to have it create some blockchain code for me, some Solidity language on Ethereum because I was into crypto coding at the time. But it just couldn't, it just kept airing out. So we never got to actually see it work live in that moment. I walked away thinking that it was overhyped and that I was skeptical. But then a few weeks later, I was sitting at my desk at work and I remembered ChatGPT. So I signed in and then I asked it to code something that I had been working on for the last week and the last couple of days. And then what happened is that it did it. And the code was cleaner than mine. Yes, I had to have a few iterations and a few back and forths and troubleshooting, but within that couple of hours, I had better and faster code than what I would have done within that whole time that I spent to myself. Yes, still had to test it, I still had to troubleshoot, but it was way faster than if I had been doing it for years, doing it from scratch. Where if it's new code and I'm not familiar with, I had to go dig through Stack Overflow, had to Google for answers, forums, look at books, and then try to figure out a cleaner way of designing it. This was days of work versus a couple hours. I was excited at first, but then it hit me, the realization that if I can do this, that means anyone with a little training can close the gap on me technically. And that's the thing that's been earning me top performance reviews at my job. My technical edge being one of the most technical people on the business side that advantage is now starting to become more available with anyone with a login and with a little bit more training and knowledge. And here is the part that I don't talk about enough is I never thought AI was going to replace me. What scared me the most was other people using AI to catch up to where I was and removing the technical edge that I had over other people. And before that moment, I was resisting to modernizing my skill set. We operate in a legacy part of healthcare, so I just didn't want to learn new skills. Everything just worked, and there wasn't an urgent reason for me to change. But that party and that desk and that realization was my wake up call. That fear is actually what made me start this channel because I needed to upskill, I need to have accountability, and I also wanted to document the journey and help people along the way. And Microsoft just named it. That gap between the people who felt that fear and moved and the people who are still comfortable. So, quick context, if you saw my video a couple months ago on Copilot Wave 3, I talk about how most people who have access to Copilot aren't even using it. The adoption rate was around 35.8%. So I said there was a window. Microsoft confirmed that window is still open, but the people on the other side are pulling away faster than I expected. If you didn't see that video, don't worry. Everything I'm about to share, it will stand on its own. But here's where it gets a little bit personal because this data hits healthcare in a different way than any other industry. Healthcare right now is buying AI, and that's not a speculation. We're seeing major launches on the healthcare side. Microsoft launched Dragon Copilot at the biggest healthcare tech conference this year. That's AI for clinical documentation. They also launched Copilot Health in March, pulling data from tens of thousands of US hospitals. So these aren't press releases, these are purchase orders and healthcare companies that are writing checks for the AI infrastructure as I'm recording this. But here is the thing. Here's the thing. Even though AI investment is accelerating, we still have a lot of org friction in healthcare because of the high compliance, the slow adoption of tech, and then being able to roll that out to employees and then being able to train everybody. Microsoft's report found that organizational factors account for twice the impact on AI success compared to your individual skills. Culture, manager support, how the company actually runs, all of it matters twice as much as what you could do on your own. And in healthcare, organizational friction is more intense than any other industry. We have things like HIPAA, we have PHI handling, we have security reviews, vendor agreements. Every new AI tool has to go through all of these layers of approval before anyone touches it. And that's just the terrain that we live in. So the paradox is real. Healthcare is investing in AI faster than any broader economy, but the internal friction to actually use these tools is also much higher than anywhere else. And here's why that paradox is actually your opportunity. Healthcare companies can't just hand AI tools to anyone and let them run. They need people who understand the data and the domain and also the compliance rules well enough to make AI work within those boundaries. That's not something that AI can just do on its own. You need an approver. You need a human being who knows how to work within your business constraints, what the compliance and regulations are, how not to break those regulations, what a valid claim looks like for your system, a realistic utilization rate, the star measures that actually captures and applies to your business within the ambiguity of working with other people. The same compliance layer that slows healthcare down is also the same layer that makes AI fluent healthcare analysts harder to replace. And that's where this edge comes from. Now, I need to be straight with you about something. I coach career switchers through DMs, through a group, through the Healthcare Analyst Lab, through conversations. And one of the things that I keep noticing is that not as many people ask me about AI. People know it's part of the picture. They do, but most people don't realize how much AI can change their entire job search. Not just their skill set, but their strategy and make things significantly faster. And I get it. They're trying to break into healthcare analytics. So their brain is focused on just trying to get in. And learning SQL, building a resume that works, portfolio, figuring out what certifications actually matter, AI feels like one more thing on the list, not the thing that changes their entire list. But the urgency of adding AI skills isn't as pronounced as I thought it would be right now, at least not yet, unless you're applying to an AI forward business. And that gap between how important AI actually is and how important people think it is, that's going to be the opportunity. Because AI isn't just a tool to learn, it's a tool to think with. So you can use it to research a company, identify problems they're facing, build a project that demonstrates you can solve those problems right now. Before you're hired, because AI is new, there's no established playbook. A lot of people don't know the power of what AI can do in terms of customizing your projects and creating customized projects fast. Career switchers who figure out creative ways to use AI in their job search right now can stand out precisely because no one else is doing it yet. So let me give you a second uncomfortable truth because this one is a lot harder. Your company is going to matter more than your skills, which means, just in simple English, you could build every skill perfectly and still be stuck if you land at a company that hasn't built the culture to support AI. So that means all the hard work that you're doing to get into this career, if you don't land into a company that is AI forward, you could be left behind. You could also be the best AI user on the floor and still be stuck if the building wasn't built for it and if the company doesn't accept AI. And I'm going to show you how to avoid that later with one interview question. But first, let me show you what people on the right side of the gap actually do, because these aren't abstract ideas. They're specific behaviors that you can start building with this week. Microsoft identified specific behaviors that separate frontier professionals from everyone else. And I'm going to translate each one into something career switchers can use today. Not after you get hired, but something that you can actively start doing. So behavior one is going to be they build with AI and not just ask it questions and not treat it like an overglorified Google search. The report analyzed 100,000 Copilot conversations. 49% of them was just cognitive work, analysis, problem solving, creative thinking, and only 70% was actually producing deliverables. Frontier professionals aren't asking AI to fix their grammars or summarize their emails. They're using it to think through complex problems across multiple steps. And let me show you what that looks like from my own desk. So recently I had an important presentation at work. It was one of those big deal meetings, high impact, high visibility with a lot of executives, because this process is cross functional and touches a lot of teams. This goes across the organization. And if anyone makes a mistake, the effort to fix it or delay is massive. So I needed to present what we improved. One of the biggest error sources was dates and miscommunications of timelines, and just making sure that we had that set. So critical deadlines, file creation cutoffs, loading windows, and then just making sure that it's coordinated and having the manual coordination to make sure that the communication is clearly stated. So what I did was I built an AI prompt that takes unstructured government document, a memo, and then with a PDF with to be able to pull all of that information and then feed it through a process that has all our specific business rules, our all the deadlines and all the nuances. It counts for holidays, internal cutoffs, loading deadlines, all of the different things that are important and complex. And then it outputs a full Excel timeline with everything laid out clearly in a template. And then a human validates the output. But that manual coordination that used to be one that we didn't have previously, now we have a document and artifact that will clearly show everything. And now it's handled in a matter of minutes than a matter of hours of creating it previously with less human error. And then on top of that, I also needed to present our validations, new and old, in a way that stakeholders, technical and non-technical, could understand at a glance. So what I did was I built a single interactive HTML dashboard built in JavaScript. Clean UI, open and closes, shows validation of what changed and what didn't. And I learned JavaScript years and years ago, but I've never really applied it. Basic stuff, but I could have never built this dashboard on my own. Not to this extent and to this quality. And not in a few days right before my presentation. I built it with AI using AI as my development partner. It didn't just stay a one-time slide, it became a permanent artifact within our SOPs. Now people can use it to understand the process, and it's just one of those things that makes it easier to pick up the process. So for me, I've evolved from not just asking AI questions, but learning how to use AI to help me build systems where I can design the workflows, set the checkpoints, and then validate the output where I know AI will probably break. And then, so how does this actually look like if you haven't been hired yet? So here's what I would do. Instead of using ChatGPT to write one SQL query, build an end-to-end project. Pick a business-ready, nuanced healthcare data set. Use AI to help you research it, analyze it, build a visualization, write a full stakeholder summary. You all AI assisted with you directing and checking every output. And then on top of this, learn with AI. And then what you want to do is if you already have projects, make sure that you use AI to improve how fast you build those projects. Now you have an AI case study of how you learned AI and how you used AI to improve what you have already built. Then you want to document the workflow. What steps did you delegate to AI? Which did you do to yourself? Then why? That's what a frontier professional portfolio project looks like. And right now, nobody is doing it, or very few people are. And then you also don't want to rely on just AI. You want to ease the fears of the AI bias that you can only use AI. Because what that's going to be also a hiring bias, especially for traditional managers, is that you only rely on AI and you can't do anything yourself. So you need to tell them and do the work upfront that you know your foundations, you can do this without AI and that you understand it. And then, but with AI, this is how much more productive and powerful you can be with it as a tool. So behavior two is they redesign the work, not just the speed. So the report says the question shifts from what tasks define my job to what outcomes am I now positioned to drive. So it sounds corporate, but let's make this a little bit more tangible. So let's picture this. A director sends you a request to two analysts on the same team. Same Slack message, Teams message. Can you pull the Q1 numbers for me by Thursday? Analyst A is going to open up the database. They run the query, they export to Excel, formats the table, and sends it over. Here you go. Tuesday morning, task complete, inbox cleared. Analyst B opens the same database, starts the same query, but before they send anything, they pause. They notice something in the Q1 trend that doesn't match what she saw in the Q4 report. Then the pulls up the Q4 report, compares, and finds that one of the upstream teams changed the reporting methodology between quarters and nobody flagged it. The Q1 numbers look fine on the surface, but they don't apply the same data set. They are not apples to apples with Q4. So if someone makes a decision based on this comparison without knowing that things have changed, it's going to be a bad executive decision. So what this analyst does is they send the Q1 numbers, but also sends a note. Here's your data. Heads up, there's a methodology change that changed between Q4 and Q1 that affects comparability. Here's what I'd recommend flagging before anyone presents this side by side. Analyst A completes the task, but analyst B understands the business. So this is a pattern that I've watched play out over and over again, being at multiple companies, multiple teams, and across different segments, and even in businesses outside of my work, is that there's going to be people that get promoted or do the best. And the ones who end up in senior and consultant roles are not the ones who execute the task the fastest. They're the ones who can think at a level of how their analytics affects the entire process and the business. They flag what nobody asked. They are proactive. They connect the upstream to downstream and they protect the business decision. And then they give the information that is needed to make the best decision. So this is where AI is going to change the equation. AI can handle here you go now, the execution part. AI can pull the data, format the table, send the report, debatable depending on what AI you're using. And that part of the job is shrinking, but the part that is growing is here's what it means. And that's going to require domain knowledge, a lot more context, and it's going to require piecing together a lot of more abstract and ambiguous parts of the business that AI might not have access to. So knowing that pair authorization rules that changed last quarter requires understanding that a star measure actually captures and why a half point drop matters more than the spreadsheet shows. For career switchers, here's what I would do. In your portfolio project, don't just present a dashboard, present the insight. And this is something that I see missing all the time is here is the data and here's what I noticed that you wouldn't have asked for. This is me going above and beyond. That's behavior that hiring managers are looking for as whether they've read the report or not, and what are the additional insights that you can offer that are proactive that shows that you're a top performer. Now, behavior 3 is they know when not to use AI. So this one is going to surprise some people. 43% of frontier professionals intentionally do some work without AI to keep their skills sharp, compared to the 30% for everyone else. And the 53% of frontier professionals pause before starting any task to decide, should this be AI or should this be something that I do? People that are pulling ahead are not the ones who are using AI for everything. They're the ones who know the difference between what AI handles well and what they need to keep doing themselves. So here is a real example. When I deployed OpenClaw, which is an open source AI framework, the community, when it first launched, there were major security vulnerabilities in that initial setup. So I could have just asked AI to fix it, but instead I used AI to teach me cybersecurity from scratch. I had AI analyze every security discussion in the community that I could find, do the research, and then I pulled transcripts from YouTube. I looked at blog post articles talking about how, all of these in-depth security threats that OpenClaw had. And what I did from here was I had AI explain to me all of the each vulnerability, had me walk through what each one meant, how to fix it, and then I built a custom hardened version of OpenClaw with a 7-layer threat model on a private server in the Linux command line that I barely used Linux before this. And I would have never been able to do this previously. I would never been able to do this 6 months earlier, even a year earlier. And I didn't just use AI to skip the learning. I used AI to accelerate the learning. And that's a huge difference right now. The report says the top human skill in the AI world is quality control of the AI output. 50% of the respondents said that because AI gives you the wrong answer, and in healthcare and in just in general, it will. It's going to miscalculate a quality measure. It's going to misread compliance threshold. It's going to misunderstand. Its context window is going to be too big. And then it's just going to get dumb. It's going to not be as smart as it did when you first had a targeted and clear context window. You're not going to be able to catch everything. But when you have that foundational domain knowledge, you have that foundation, you'll know when AI is wrong, and then you can reconnect it and redirect it. And that's where your foundational skills matter most. So the SQL and Excel fundamentals. So the SQL and Excel fundamentals that you're learning right now, that's not busy work. That's the foundation that's going to allow you to evaluate AI output. So don't skip it because AI can write the queries. Build it so you can check the queries. And AI is a multiplier based on your already existing skills. And here's something that no one is talking about in the AI space. There's also a bias on the other side. If a hiring manager looks at your portfolio and it's obvious that you built everything with AI, and you can't explain how it works underneath, that's going to be a red flag. And that is a genuine concern that's happening right now. Candidates who lean too heavily on AI might have fragile technical skills that they can't do anything without it. That fear is real enough that it could cost you the offer. And that's not your fault if you didn't know where this was going, because most AI advice doesn't mention it. So AI, just think of AI as a double-edged sword for career switchers especially. Yes, use AI to learn the material, use it to build faster, use it to accelerate your growth, but also make sure you have the skills to build and understand the work with that AI. Because in an interview, when someone asks you to walk through your logic, write a query on the spot, your technical test, you will need to be able to do it, not perfectly, but genuinely. And then people who get the balance of right of being able to evolve with AI and have the foundational skills to be able to pass all of these interviews in the traditional sense, they're the ones who are going to be able to thrive and be able to have the competitive edge and be able to meet the AI bar at the same time. So while you're learning SQL, write the query yourself, then ask AI how to improve it, compare the two, then learn the difference and have AI mentor you. That's how you're going to build both skills at once. The fundamental skills to write it yourself, but also the AI skills to evaluate, improve on it, and to learn from it. That's going to be the balance. And the best AI users aren't the ones who use AI the most. They're the ones who know when not to use it and how to grow with it. So behavior 4 is they document and share what works. So early in my career, I had a mentor who would call himself a smart, lazy person. And what he meant by this was he was motivated to automate the boring work because he didn't want to do it. And here's what happened: he didn't just get more free time, he got placed on better projects, more interesting work, higher visibility. And that pattern hasn't changed. The people who automate and document their workflows get pulled into better work. So, frontier professionals are more likely to share what they learn about AI with their teams, which is 61% versus 36%. They discuss higher quality standards for AI assisted work at almost double the rate of everyone else. And this is where this gap is going to compound because each project builds on the last. Each workflow you document becomes the foundation for the next one, when this is where I went from ChatGPT assisted VBA to Python with AI to JavaScript dashboards to deploying and hardening a Linux on a Linux server on for an open framework. Each step was built before it, and that's the compounding growth that I'm talking about. Because people who are starting, that gap is going to compound negatively for them because they're getting worse and people are getting better around them, because the distance between them and everyone else starts to grow every month, and with AI it grows significantly faster. So here's what I would do before you're even getting hired: is I want you to start documenting your AI workflows more. Keep a simple log. Just, what did you do with AI? What did it give you? What did it change? What did you learn? And then that log is going to become interview material. Here's how I used AI as a learning partner. And then that's going to be a story that no other candidate is telling. Because once you're hired, the first week on the job, you're going to figure out one task that you can prove with your AI and document it. You can share it with your team. You can demonstrate, you can become a demonstrated frontier professional on day one, at least the behavior, and then you can start working to becoming that top 16%, because that growth compounds for people who start it and it compounds negatively for people who wait. Now, here is where the Microsoft data gets a little bit more personal to people who are applying right now. The company that you choose determines more of your AI success, more than your own skills, twice as much, like we've said before. That means career switchers need to start evaluating employees, not just chasing any offer, as long as you have the choice. Sometimes you're going to need to just accept whatever offer that you get and then work your way to a better company. But if you have a little bit more flexibility and more choice in the matter, then you can start to evaluate it a little bit more critically. Now, here is the question: how is your team using AI in daily workflows? That's it, just one question. If the interview lights up and they talk about specific tools, team standards, experiments that they're running, that's going to be a frontier firm signal. That's a company that's on the right side of the gap. If they look confused, if they say we don't really use it yet, or they give you a generic answer about how they're maybe exploring AI in the future, that's going to tell you something different. You might still take the job, but you'll know that you're walking into what Microsoft calls a transformation paradox. You'll be the one who has to build the AI culture from inside, which might be something that you want to do and get the experience for. And that's possible, but it's a different game from joining a team that's already there. Because I've been on hiring panels, I can tell you the questions that candidates ask tell me much more. As I've sat on hiring panels, I can tell you the questions that candidates ask tell me as much as the answers they give. A candidate who's asked about AI culture stands out because nobody asked about it yet. And there are numbers behind this. Only 26% of AI users say their leadership is clearly aligned on AI strategy, and only 13% say they're rewarded for trying new things with AI. Most companies haven't figured this out yet, and the ones that have are the ones you want to land at. And this is the question: how do you find them? So let's look at it here. So, like we mentioned, you want to end up at frontier, ideally frontier AI forward companies. You can still do decent at emergent companies that will be working with AI and that are open to AI. But at places where you have blocked agency, where the companies are stalled or it's unclaimed and they're not really thinking about AI, those are going to hinder you once you get inside. But do what you need to do to get your healthcare experience, and then know that you're going to need to transition out if unless the company makes major AI decisions as the market evolves. And you can think about this too. The job posting is going to tell you what they want you to do. The interview is going to tell you what they'll let you become. So know that you're going to be doing all of this hard work to just make sure you don't get replaced later. Just to bring this back is more than 2 years ago, I was scared. I sat at my desk, I watched AI produce cleaner code in a couple hours. I thought my technical edge was gone. I thought anyone with a login was about to catch up with my over a decade of technical skill. That fear is what started this channel. But I've been learning with AI significantly over the last few years. Now I build AI agents, I deploy hardened systems with inside a Linux CLI, the command line that I never did before. Now I can present AI powered dashboards at quality at Summit, and I build prompts that replace one of our biggest manual error sources with automated and validated output. ChatGPT told me I'm at the top 1% of users last year based on output. I run an AI agent called OpenClaw. I build custom GPTs for my community for job search and coaching. I use Claude for multi-step production systems for research, scripting, and video preparation. The more that I build with AI, the more confident I am that I have a job, not less, more. And I feel more comfortable that there's going to be more job opportunities for the people who learn AI moving forward. Because I know where AI breaks, I know what it can't do, I know where its limitations are at, I know what a human being who designs a system around the AI limitations, who catches the wrong output, who connects the data to the business, is going to be one of the most valuable people on the floor. Microsoft put a number on what I've been living, and that 16% is pulling ahead. Those frontier professionals are pulling ahead. And here's what I want you to hear. The reason they're pulling ahead isn't talent, it's not credentials, it's not years of experience, it's this decision. They decided to start. So I'm not telling you that I figured it all out. I'm still in the middle of figuring it all out. But that gap between what I can build on my personal projects and what I can deploy inside a top Fortune 500 healthcare company is very real. I'm navigating it every day. But Microsoft just showed up with all the data that says people who are in the middle and the people who are on the sidelines and haven't figured it out yet, they're going to be passed by the people who are pulling ahead. So you don't need to be an expert. It's actually one of the best times to get in when you're not an expert. You don't need to be hired first. You just need to start. Build one project with AI, start learning from that building, document your process, ask better questions in interviews. So stop waiting for someone to tell you it's time, because it's time. And so take this, start learning with AI, start building it, and make your job search easier. And until then, query responsibly. And if you're pivoting into healthcare analytics and want to start building frontier professional habits before you're even hired, I built a healthcare analyst lab exactly for that. We go through everything: AI assisted research, portfolio building, job search strategy together, and accountability for the people who need to stay consistent, because it's a hard grind trying to break into a healthcare analytics role, especially in today's market. Link is in the description for those who are interested. And until next time, click on this video because YouTube thinks that you're like it. And I'll see you in the next video.